Don't worry, I got you. Nobody's gonna hurt you.
It was past midnight in the grand, candlelit dining hall of Ebonfall Manor, an ancient fortress hidden deep within the shadow forest. The walls were carved from black stone, glistening like obsidian under the flickering flames. Long velvet curtains swayed with the cold night breeze, and the air smelled faintly of iron, smoke, and something older, something immortal. A group of night guards sat at a distant table, armored in dark leather, whispering stories of the supernatural creatures that roamed beyond the manor gates. Their swords lay beside them, gleaming like sleeping fangs. This wasn't a place people stumbled into. It was a place whispered about in fear, a place where stories ended, not began. But that night, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change lives forever. Before we begin this heart-touching dark fantasy story, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel if you believe in courage, second chances, and the mysterious power of fate. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. A small figure burst through the manor's heavy oak doors, barefoot and shaking. A girl no older than 10. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled, and her tiny satchel dangled from one shoulder. Her eyes darted around the massive hall like a hunted animal searching for somewhere. Anywhere to hide. Behind her stretched the endless forest. And somewhere in that darkness was the monster she feared most, her stepfather. His angry shouts echoed through the night. Growing closer, her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out her own breath. Without thinking, she crawled beneath the nearest long, ancient table, its legs carved like twisted beasts, her entire body trembling. Tears streaking down her dirt-covered cheeks. The table belonged to Lord Arkenvale, the vampire lord of Ebonfall. He was a creature of centuries, silent, stoic, unreadable. Silver eyes, ancient scars, and a presence so powerful the air around him seemed to bend. For decades he had isolated himself from humans, haunted by bloodshed, betrayal, and the curse of immortality. He had no intention of ever caring for mortals again until he felt something brush against his boot. Lord Arkin looked down. And saw her, a terrified little girl, staring up at him with wide, desperate eyes. She looked starved, exhausted, and fragile. Her tiny hands clutched her satchel like it was the last thing she owned in the world. For a moment, their eyes met, her fear colliding with his centuries-old sorrow. Something shifted within him, something he thought had died long ago. Outside, footsteps thundered. Then the manor doors slammed open. A man stumbled in, tall, filthy, and drunk. His voice boomed through the halls. "Where is she?" The guards stood instantly, hands on their swords. The man's name was Roderick, her stepfather, a man known in the nearby village for his temper, his cruelty, and his violent fits. "My girl ran in here," he barked, spittle flying. "She belongs to me." Arkin leaned back in his chair, expression calm, but cold as winter frost. "You tread in my domain, mortal," he said softly. "Choose your next words with care." Roderick swallowed, but his fury pushed him forward. "She's my kid." "You don't tell me." Arkin glanced down at the girl beneath his table. She was crying silently, shaking uncontrollably, and in that instant, something inside him broke. A memory. A long-lost daughter he had failed to save centuries ago. With the same terrified eyes, the same silent plea for help, Arkin rose slowly, voice soft but deadly. "She does not wish to go with you." The hall fell silent. Candles crackled. Roderick's face twisted with rage. He stepped forward, but before he could even breathe another threat, Arkin moved, quicker than a shadow. His hand closed around Roderick's throat and slammed him against a stone pillar with supernatural force. The guards circled like wolves, eyes glowing. Roderick sputtered, kicking and clawing, but it was useless. The manor guards dragged him away as Arkin ordered the village sentries to take him to the magistrate. This time, he would not escape justice. When the hall finally quieted, the girl remained under the table, still clutching her satchel. Arkin knelt beside her, lowering himself to her level. "You are safe now," he whispered. She looked up, cautious but curious. "What is your name, child?" "Liara," she whispered. "Well, Leora," he said gently, "Ebenfall will protect you tonight." The manor staff brought her warm bread, soup, and a thick cloak. For the first time in days, she managed a small smile, fragile but real. Even the guards scoffed at the sight. Over the next hours, Leora told Arkin her story. Her mother had died 2 years ago. Her stepfather had become a monster. That night he struck her and threatened worse. All she carried was a worn photograph of her mother, a few clothes, and a small stuffed fox missing one eye. Arkin listened. Every word pierced deeper than any blade. He could not turn her away. The child needed protection, and he needed redemption. So he made a decision that stunned even his immortal household. He would take her in the weeks that followed. Ebenfall became her sanctuary. The guards taught her how to ride shadow steeds. The maidens braided her hair with enchanted ribbons. And Arkin found himself smiling again. A tiny leather cloak was made for her, embroidered with the crest of Ebenfall, but peace never lasts. One evening, as Leora played in the courtyard, a familiar old wagon creaked toward the gates. Roderick released, angrier, more dangerous. Leora froze, terror returning like a cold hand around her throat. Roderick stormed forward, screaming for her, threatening Arkin, spitting curses at the manor guards. Arkin stepped between them. "She is not your daughter," he said. "You lost that right the moment you hurt her." Roderick lunged, but this time, Arkin did not restrain himself. The fight was brutal, centuries of grief and fury unleashed. When it ended, Roderick lay defeated, restrained until the authorities dragged him away for good. Leora ran into Arkin's arms, sobbing. He held her close. "You are safe now," he whispered. "Truly safe." Months passed. Leora was eventually placed into a kind, loving human home in the nearby village. But she never forgot Ebenfall or the immortal guardian who saved her. On her 12th birthday, a messenger delivered a black velvet box. Inside was a miniature embroidered crest of Ebenfall, and a note in elegant silver ink. "You saved me, little light, more than I ever saved you." Arkinvale years later, Leora grew up to become a healer protecting children who suffered as she once did. She rode through the villages wearing a cloak with the Ebenfall crest sewn proudly on the back. Whenever people asked what it meant, she smiled softly and said, "It means I was rescued by kindness, in a place where kindness wasn't supposed to exist." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more emotional fantasy stories to life, stories that remind us that goodness can be found in the darkest of places. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in the vampire lord's place? Because sometimes the strongest protectors are the ones who've already lost the most. It had been nearly 3 years since Leora left Ebenfall Manor. Yet the memory of those dark stone halls and the silver-eyed vampire who saved her still glowed in her heart. Like a warm ember, her new foster family loved her deeply. She was safe. She laughed again. She grew stronger, but some bonds are carved deeper than blood, and the bond between Leora and Lord Arkinvale was one of them. One stormy night, Leora, now 13, sat by her window, reading a dusty healing manual. Thunder rolled across the sky like an angry beast. But beneath that thunder, she heard something else, a distant howl, a cry, a warning. Heart froze. She knew that sound. It came from the Shadow Forest, the home of Ebenfall. She slipped on her cloak, the one embroidered. with the ebb and fall crests, and quietly stepped outside. Rain poured down, lightning split the sky, and the wind howled as if trying to turn her back, but she kept moving. Something was calling her home, Dad, as she approached the forest edge. A massive shadow stumbled out from behind the trees. A tall figure, cloaked in black, drenched in rain, and barely standing. Leora gasped, Lord Arkin, but he wasn't the Arkin she remembered. His silver eyes were dim, his skin pale even for him, and dark veins crawled up his neck like poison. Arkin, she cried, running to him. He collapsed to his knees. Leora? His voice was strained, ragged. You shouldn't be here. She wrapped her arms around him, steadying him. What happened to you? A flash of lightning illuminated the woods, and in that split second, she saw movement in the shadows. Eyes, red, multiple, watching. We must go, Arkin whispered weakly. They followed me. Who? But before he could answer, a monstrous shriek tore through the forest. A creature leapt out, its skin ash gray, its fangs dripping black venom, its limbs twisted like broken branches. A night spawn, born from dark magic. Feeding on immortal blood, it lunged straight at them. Leora screamed, pulling Arkin out of the way just in time. The creature's claws ripped through the mud where they'd been standing. Arkin tried to rise, but fell again too weak. Leora's heart pounded. She had two choices: run, or protect the very man who once protected her. She stepped in front of him. The night spawn screeched and charged. Leora closed her eyes. But then a familiar roar shook the trees from the sky. A massive winged shadow swooped down its wings like blades of darkness. Arkin's guardian beast, Varian, the shadow dragon of Ebonfall. With a thunderous crash, it slammed into the night spawn, sending it flying into a boulder. The creature shrieked before dissolving into black smoke. Leora turned to Arkin, breath shaking. Arkin, what's happening? His voice was faint. A curse, he whispered. Someone powerful wants Ebonfall for themselves. They poisoned me, and if I fall, the manor, the forest, and everyone within it will fall too. Leora felt tears prick her eyes. No, you saved me. Now it's my turn. He looked at her, truly looked at her. A mortal girl, small, young, fragile, yet braver than warriors twice her size. Leora, he murmured, there is only one way to break the curse. She steadied herself. Tell me. You must return with me to Ebonfall, to the place where the curse began. Her heart pounded. The forest behind them whispered, shadows shifting. More night spawn gathered, waiting, watching. The storm intensified. There was no turning back. Leora took Arkin's cold hand and pulled his arm over her shoulder. I'm taking you home. With Varian circling protectively above them and night spawn growling from the trees, Leora stepped into the darkness of the forest, and the path to Ebonfall opened once more. Their story was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. Asterisk, the path back to Ebonfall Manor twisted through the darkest corners of the shadow forest. The trees leaned inward like ancient giants whispering secrets, and the rain had slowed to a cold, steady drizzle. Varian, the shadow dragon, flew above them, its wings slicing through the clouds like a watchful guardian. Leora tightened her grip on Arkin as he leaned heavily on her. His strength was fading fast. The black veins crawling up his neck pulsed with poisonous magic. Just a little more, she whispered. Arkin's voice was barely a breath. If the curse reaches my heart, Ebonfall will fall with me. When they finally reached the manor gates, the guards gasped, rushing to their lord's side. The great doors swung open, revealing the familiar, haunting beauty of Ebonfall's grand hall lit with dim candles and echoing with the weight of ages, but something was wrong. The air felt colder The shadows. Deeper. The silence. Too heavy. Who did this to you? Leora asked as she helped Arkin onto the throne-like stone seat in the center of the hall. Arkin closed his eyes in pain. It wasn't a creature, he whispered. It was someone I once trusted. A soft, mocking clap echoed through the hall. Leora froze Dot from the far end of the chamber. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with silver hair braided like a crown. Wearing flowing black robes embroidered with ancient runes, her eyes were crimson. Lady Seraphine, Arkin's former advisor. Once loyal, now corrupted by Forbidden's magic. Little Leora, Seraphine purred. The child who softened the heart of the most feared vampire in the realm. How touching. Leora stepped protectively in front of Arkin. What did you do to him? Seraphine smirked. I did what he was too weak to do, take control. Ebenfall deserves a ruler with ambition, not one who weeps over mortals. Her eyes glowed brighter. And you are the key to his downfall? Leora stiffened. Me? The night you entered this manor, Seraphine said, Arkin used ancient magic to shield you. That spell bound your life. To his, Arkin struggled to rise. Enough, Seraphine. But she flicked her wrist. He collapsed again, the dark veins spreading faster. Seraphine's voice dripped with triumph. If I kill you, child, Arkin dies instantly, and Ebenfall becomes mine. The guards drew their weapons. Varian roared from outside, shaking the entire manor, but Seraphine raised both hands, unleashing a blast of shadow magic that hurled the guards back and shattered the windows. Lior single quotes heart pounded. She had no weapon, no powers, no training. Just courage. She stepped forward anyway. Why destroy everything Arkin built? She shouted over the swirling magic. Seraphine's smile faded, because he chose humanity over power. He protected you instead of ruling as he should have. Lightning flashed. Seraphine unleashed another spell. A spear of darkness racing straight toward Leora. Leora closed her eyes, but the impact never came. A burst of silver light exploded from behind her. Arkin had risen barely but enough. He stood before her, shielding her with his own body. The curse surged wildly, ripping through him. He fell to his knees. No! Leora cried, gripping him. Arkin's voice was faint. You are my light. You remind me what I once was. Seraphine snarled. Pathetic. She raised her hand to strike again, and that was the moment Leora made her choice. She stepped in front of Arkin, facing Seraphine alone. No weapon can defeat you, Leora said quietly. But curses can be broken. She reached into her SATCHEL and pulled out the one thing she had carried since the night she ran away, her mother's old pendant, a simple crystal. Cracked at the center, Seraphine laughed. A trinket? But Arkin's eyes widened. Leora, that crystal, it carries protective magic. Your mother, she was more than a healer. Leora didn't hesitate. She held the pendant high as lightning illuminated the hall. The crystal glowed dim at first, then brighter, until its light filled every shadowed corner. Seraphine shrieked, covering her eyes. The curse inside Arkin writhed, recoiling like a living thing. The veins faded. The darkness peeled away. Arkin gasped, strength returning. Leora stepped toward Seraphine, the crystal blazing with white-hot energy. You wanted power, Leora said softly. But you forgot one thing. Seraphine backed away, terrified. What is that? Light, Leora whispered. Everything you fear. The pendant erupted in a final burst of brilliant light. A shockwave tore through the hall. Windows shattered. Shadows shriveled. Seraphine screamed, her form dissolving into smoke. And then silence. The hall dimmed. Liora collapsed for word. But Arkin caught her. Easy. Little light, he said, voice warm and steady once more. The curse was gone, Seraphine was gone, and Ebenfall was safe. Days later. When the manor finally returned to peace, Arkin stood beside Leora on the balcony overlooking the shadow forest. The sun was rising, something Arkin hadn't watched in decades. You saved Ebenfall? He said quietly. Leora smiled. You saved me first? Arkin placed a small object in her hand, a miniature silver crest. Wherever life takes you, he said, you will always be part of Ebenfall. Years later, Leora grew into a powerful healer and guardian known throughout the realm as Leora, the Lightbearer. Villages whispered her name. Children wore small replicas of her pendant. And the bond between her and Arkin, between mortal and immortal, became a legend told for generations, a story of protection, a story of courage, a story of light in the darkest of places. And so the tale of Ebenfall ends. Not in sorrow, but in hope. If this final chapter touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more emotional fantasy stories. And tell us in the comments, what lesson did you learn from Leora and Arkin's journey?